Let's talk about Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns. It's a lot of interesting things to talk about with this situation right now. Obviously, Deshaun Watson has not been a good football player for the Cleveland Browns since they made the trade to bring him over from the Houston Texans. This trade will go down as one of the worst trades in Cleveland Browns history. In my opinion, when I go back and look at the trade history, it's easily the worst trade that they have ever made. Not only did you trade first-round picks to bring in Deshaun Watson, you made this man one of the highest paid players in the NFL at that time with a fully guaranteed contract before you even saw him play a single snap with your organization. This is what terrible ownership does. This is what terrible management does. But at the time, Deshaun Watson was a top quarterback in the league. He was in the same conversation with Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. He went out there and had a crazy playoff run against the Buffalo Bills. And Deshaun Watson was a franchise quarterback for the Texans. So I will come on here and I will try to take up for the Cleveland Browns in that aspect. But at the same time, it's never a good idea to go out there and pay a player a lot of money when you have yet to see him go out there and play a single snap for you. Deshaun Watson missed all of that last season with the Houston Texans. He was done with the organization. He just saw Bill O'Brien go out there and trade DeAndre Hopkins for David Johnson. Now, he did get to play with Brandon Cooks. He did go out there and he did play with Will Fuller. Him and Will Fuller, very close friends. But you saw the writing on the wall. He was done with the Houston Texans organization. And at the time, that Texans organization is not the organization that we look at right now. Same ownership, yes. But when you look at that situation at that time, the Houston Texans were making a lot of dumb decisions. So Deshaun Watson put his hands up. He said, I'm done. He missed all of that last season. So this is a player, not only you've never seen play in your uniform, he just missed an entire season. You don't get better at playing sports when you take time off, especially for a full year. Deshaun Watson go out there, he can have training camp, all of that stuff with his individual coaches. It is different when you're not in that environment with actual NFL coaches and getting hit on a consistent basis in practice. That's why it's important to go out there and have training camp and OTAs. And you hear every single player say that. You don't go through training camp, you don't go through OTAs, it's going to be hard for you to go out there and start in week 1. And you're playing more than just 10 games in the season. You're playing up to 18 games if you're fully healthy and if you are a very good player in the league. When you look at Deshaun Watson the last 3 seasons, out of 54 games that he could have played, he's only played 19. That first year with the Cleveland Browns, he was suspended for 12 games because the allegations off the field. He hasn't been the same person or player since then. When you look at Deshaun Watson with the Houston Texans, he was dancing, bouncing around. He was a community guy. Houston at the time, they loved Deshaun Watson because he was a franchise quarterback. He did so many great things off the field for that community. But you saw when those allegations hit, he hasn't been the same guy. He doesn't have the same confidence, and he hasn't been the same player. And you look at Deshaun Watson since then. He missed majority of that first season with the Cleveland Browns. In year number 2, plays a couple of games, has a very good game against the Baltimore Ravens, especially in the second half. They defeat the Baltimore Ravens. He hurt his shoulder. He'll be out for the rest of the season. And it also doesn't help Deshaun Watson's confidence that he saw Kevin Stefanski go out there and make the NFL playoffs with Joe Flacco. This time last year, the Cleveland Browns were preparing to face the Houston Texans on the road, the former team of Deshaun Watson. How great would that have been if Deshaun Watson was a starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns? He goes back to the team and he wants to stick it to the Houston Texans with their young quarterback in CJ. But that wasn't the case. Joe Flacco came in, did a very good job. They make the NFL playoffs and they won 11 games last season. But Deshaun Watson would eventually come back to the roster because they were paying him so much money. And this is also something else that I want to touch on. They won 11 games last year. They went 11-6. But they restructured Deshaun Watson's contract last season. He's restructured his contract 3 times now and back-to-back years. That's not common for a player that was seen as a franchise quarterback at a point in time a couple of years ago. You don't get quarterbacks to go out there and restructure your contract that many times in back-to-back years. And it gives the Cleveland Browns a lot of flexibility. And I'm starting to believe that Deshaun Watson and his agent probably knew, hey, something's going on with my Achilles. Let's restructure this deal. They can't cut me after next season, and they realistically can't because the cap hit will be the biggest cap hit in NFL history, and it will handicap the Cleveland Browns in free agency. So it's smart to hold on to him for at least one more season. So they went out there, they restructured the deal. But when I look at Deshaun Watson from a playing standpoint, forget the allegations for a second. Forget the injuries for a second also. even though that's a huge part of it. Deshaun Watson in 7 games this year has 5 passing touchdowns to 3 interceptions. Not terrible numbers, not franchise quarterback numbers. But I found this very interesting. They never scored over 20 points with Deshaun Watson this year. Never. The offense looks significantly better with Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston in 8 games this season, 13 passing touchdowns. Not too shabby, but the 12 interceptions are terrible. So he's not going to be the franchise guy. But Jameis Winston wasn't supposed to be the franchise guy. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, he's not supposed to be the guy. It's supposed to be Deshaun Watson. So this is a quarterback that can't play on the field anymore. He's a shell of his former self on and off the field. Not only just that, he can't stay healthy. A shoulder injury, a torn ACL, his rookie season with the Houston Texans. Many people forget that. And he just went out there and tore his Achilles not once, but twice. That's 4 injuries within just a few years. Deshaun Watson was never the biggest imposing quarterback on the field in terms of being like Josh Allen, having that size and strength to him. But he had accuracy. He had an arm on him. He didn't have a top 5 arm, but this is a man that was a very good quarterback for many years with the Houston Texans. I hate to see this. I understand the off the field stuff. I'm not going to tell you how to feel. If those things are true, and it seems like that some of them were because he came out and apologized, that's terrible. That is some scummy stuff. But when I look at it from an on the field standpoint, I have never seen a bigger drop off of a player. I haven't even seen this in baseball. Deshaun Watson has become one of the worst starting quarterbacks to have in this league. And not only just that, he has a terrible reputation with him. It would be smart for the Cleveland Browns to just go out there and say, hey, you know what? Rehab. You're going to miss majority of next season anyway. We'll draft a quarterback like Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, or even bring a quarterback in through free agency. Now, I don't believe that they can go out there and pay Sam Darnold a lot of money, but Sam Darnold would be a very good fit with Kevin Stefanski. Now, Kevin Stefanski did go out there and he did fire Ken Dorsey and majority of the offensive staff. That's a bad look on Kevin Stefanski, but you can give him a lot of leeway. The man made the NFL playoffs last season with Joe Flacco. 2 of your top tackles out. Your starting safety out. Your starting running back majority of the season, Nick Chubb, he was out. He hurt his knee against the Steelers. So you can make the case, hey, Kevin Stefanski, he knows what he's doing. And I'll say this about Kevin Stefanski. He's been one of the best Cleveland Brown coaches in recent memory. He's definitely better than Freddie Kitchens, and he's definitely better than Hugh Jackson. But I hope the Cleveland Browns can figure this thing out. Part of the reason to why they fired Ken Dorsey and why Kevin Stefanski was over him, you knew that you were dealing with backup quarterback play with Jameis Winston and Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Now, Jameis Winston, I believe that he can be a solid backup at times. The interceptions will always hurt him, but he'll have nice moments like how he had against the Baltimore Ravens and how he had against the Steelers. But Dorian Thompson-Robinson, I don't believe that he can play in this league. And I'm trying to be nice here. Dorian Thompson-Robinson is not a good football player. DTR, he's not ready to play in the NFL. He may never be ready to play in a starting role. But when I look at the Cleveland Browns, their offense made 0 sense. You have the most pass attempts in the league, 661. That's over the Cincinnati Bengals. That's over the Kansas City Chiefs. That's over the Philadelphia Eagles. That's over the Green Bay Packers. And all those teams, they have franchise quarterbacks. You should at least be at the average point. At best, you should be towards the end in pass attempts. This should be a rush-heavy offense. They should be running the football at a high clip. But you had the 5th least rushing attempts in the league. That's on Kevin Stefanski and Ken Dorsey because Kevin Stefanski is an offensive-minded coach. And I look at the Browns' track record. They can't develop a quarterback to save their lives. That's why they went out there and that's why they made the trade to bring in Deshaun Watson. Because you look at Baker Mayfield right now, he's balling with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I will stand on this point. Baker Mayfield would have never looked like this with the Cleveland Browns. I wish the Haslam family could actually go out there and sell the team. It is getting terrible at this point. Yes, you made the playoffs, but a lot of that's on Kevin Stefanski. Ownership has done little to nothing to help out the general manager and to help out the coach on and off the field. Whoever signed off on this trade for Deshaun Watson, they should be fired. And there's a lot of conflicting reports that Andrew Berry did have to go out there and he did make the trade, but he was influenced by ownership to go out there and make this trade. And there was a lot of reports at the time that Deshaun Watson had conversations with the Atlanta Falcons, with the Carolina Panthers. So the Cleveland Browns were not his top choice. The Cleveland Browns had a lot of money to offer. at that time. And it tells you a lot about Deshaun Watson. He wanted his money, and he just got his money with the Houston Texans a couple of years before. When I look at the Browns, it's not all doom and gloom. You have good players. You have very good wide receiving core. I like Jerry Jeudy a lot. I like Elijah Moore. You look at David Njoku. I think that David Njoku is a very good receiving tight end. This is a man that had over 800 receiving yards last season with Joe Flacco, and you saw him get more involved with Jameis Winston this season. With Deshaun Watson, not so much. You look at the defense, you have one of the best pass rushers in the league, Myles Garrett, 14 sacks on the year, 3 forced fumbles. It's going to be very interesting to see what they do with Myles Garrett moving forward. They can hold on to Myles Garrett. Right now, he is the Cleveland Browns, but if they trade Myles Garrett, they can get a king's ransom for him. I hate to see homegrown players go elsewhere in a trade. I'm just one of those old guys in that standpoint. I love to see a player stay with his team, especially when you're the first overall pick and he's not a bust. Myles Garrett is a phenomenal player, and I wish the Cleveland Browns could go out there and actually make some noise in the playoffs because this man is special. He's in that same conversation with TJ Watt, Max Crosby, Aiden Hutchinson. Just one of the best to look at right now, and Trey Hendrickson. This division is loaded with pass rushers. Dalvin Tomlinson, solid defensive tackle to have around, can push the pocket, can stop the run. He's not flashy at all, but he does the dirty work for you. They made the move to move on from Zadarius Smith. That was a very good move. You get a draft pick for a player that was a very good and active pass rusher. The problem with Zadarius Smith was this. When you have those two bookend defensive ends and those two pass rushers, that's when you're trying to make a playoff run. And the Cleveland Browns are far from that this year. If they had a better record with better talent at the quarterback position, you could have easily held on to Zadarius Smith and to Myles Garrett. I look at the secondary. Denzel Ward has suffered a lot of concussions, but he's been checked out by an independent doctor. He said that he's fine. As long as he can stay healthy and stay away from those concussion injuries, he's going to be one of the most talented cornerbacks in the league for many years to come. And he's been a true number one for many years up to this point. Cameron Mitchell, you have him at the nickel position. I think that there's something there. He's 23 years old. We'll see how his career pans out, but that's still young to be a player in this league. You have Greg Newsome II. I like Greg Newsome. You have good players. That's the most frustrating part about the Cleveland Browns right now. You have good players, and you have Martin Emerson Jr., who you can make the case as their best cover corner. They have a lot of good players, but this Deshaun Watson saga has to come to an end. After next season, let this man go. It was reports coming out of the Cleveland Browns. There are reports on ESPN, Fox, and CBS that many people in the building still have faith in Deshaun Watson. I don't know what the hell they're watching. But he's not going to be the same player. Even if he was fully healthy, you see the drop-off right now. He's not the same guy. He's trying, yes. You see him going out there. He's trying to put the football in the tight windows. He's trying to sling the football around. He's just not the same player. And this is an awkward fit for Deshaun Watson. This is not the ideal fit for him either. You look at Kevin Stefanski. Oddly enough, the ideal quarterback for this system would be Baker Mayfield. But they shipped off of Baker Mayfield because they put their kid through hell. That wasn't on Kevin Stefanski. That was on ownership. The man had Hugh Jackson as his head coach when he was a rookie. And you have Hugh Jackson going out there in Hard Knocks basically saying, hey, you're not going to be the starter, but congratulations, you won the backup position. Who the hell says that? Congratulations on you being a backup and you're the first overall pick. That's nice coaching right there. And that tells you a lot about this ownership, the fact that that man was a head coach for more than one season. And then they went with Freddie Kitchens because he had a good relationship with Baker Mayfield. He was just a solid offensive coordinator at best, and they made him the head coach. So you put Baker Mayfield in a bad situation. He had to learn a new playbook year in and year out, and you saw what he could do with Kevin Stefanski. They brought in Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, all these key weapons. But him and Odell Beckham, they never got the chemistry down. And I'm happy to see Baker Mayfield find success right now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But back to the Myles Garrett conversation. I wish that Baker Mayfield would have panned out for the Cleveland Browns. Do you know how bad this franchise has been over the last 20 to 30 years? They can't get any quarterback decision right. Even when they make a trade, they can't get it right. And Baker Mayfield has some solid years. But I think the Cleveland Browns have a golden opportunity here. You go with Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. It seems like the Tennessee Titans, they love Cam Ward, and rightfully so. Cam Ward would be a great fit in this system. But I look at Shedeur Sanders. I think Shedeur Sanders would play very well. That's just my opinion. I know a lot of people don't like Shedeur Sanders because he's coming from Colorado. He's been coached by his dad his entire career. You do worry about that. But when I look at the arm talent and the accuracy, there's something there with him. And you could take him with the second overall pick. Sure, this team, they need offensive line help. They may need another running back because Nick Chubb, he's not the same guy. Coming off that knee injury, you saw that he's not as fast as he used to be. And that's the second time that he suffered a knee injury like this. He suffered a knee injury like this in college. And he broke his foot this year. So now look at the Cleveland Browns. You do need some help in certain positions. But the biggest problem with this team right now, besides ownership, is that quarterback position. You go out there in free agency, you try to bring in a guy like Sam Darnold. And if that doesn't work out, go out there, go with Shedeur Sanders. And hopefully you can develop him, but give him time. But let me know in the comment section below, what should the Cleveland Browns do with Deshaun Watson? If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, I want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for the video, guys. God bless.